Yeah, the lag is real bad. I wonder about our connection sometimes, but also there are just so many people in our building using the internet.
That's all we have now. That is our life.
It's the internet. Yeah. Did you watch the tiger? No, you're not going to watch.
She's not
the
going to
tiger.
watch
No, I refuse. Private zoos are garbage, and I will not let them have any more knowledge in my life.
Well, then, the official stance of this podcast is that Joe Exotic should be freed.
No, it's not.
Yes, he committed many crimes.
No, it's not.
But he should be freed, and he should also he should be the governor of Oklahoma.
No to
I
all
have a
those
strong
things.
feeling that what I just said and what you just said have strong moral disagreements.
No, Colin is wrong. The official stance of this podcast is Colin is wrong.
Listen,
Well,
if
yes.
you want to make an omelet, you got to break a couple tigers, is all I'm saying.
No!
Some of you may become somewhat uncomfortable as parts of this film unfold, but I think if you listen carefully,
Nature was intended to give you an appropriate solution.
a healthy, happy sex life is the most wonderful and terribly unpleasant. We've all experienced curiosity about ourselves and the opposite sex. Who hasn't?
Hello, shut-ins. I'm Megan.
I'm Marcella.
And I'm what used to be Colin.
And welcome to Remedial Sex Ed.
Oh, were we supposed to say that with you? I think I forgot.
You guys can say it now.
No.
Welcome,
no, I want it
welcome,
like that.
listener. Last time we talked to you, the world was a different place. We were talking about stocking up on condoms and lube, which would have been a good thing to do, but it seems like the world is so different now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, we keep trying to do some form of segment on like sex workers and Sesta Fosta and to talk to people who define themselves that way and not that way. And it's not happening. Like every time we
not
try.
that time.
No.
Nope.
It's not, I guess so. We have 2 episodes sort of in the bank that we will release one of them someday.
But ultimately, we are here because over the past 2 weeks, mostly 2 weeks ago, I was symptomatic of the coronavirus. I am now officially past my 3 days no symptoms, so I'm fine. But we thought it was important for me to kind of talk about my experience from start to finish regarding the coronavirus because one thing about having it and having it with minor symptoms is, you turn to the media and you Google, since it's such a new disease and there's not a lot that's known about it. Like if you get a common cold or flu, you know what's going to happen. If you catch pneumonia, which I've also had, like there's kind of a set definition of what's going to happen to you. With this, there's a lot of stories out there of the moderate to severe cases of corona and nothing about minor. And if you have a minor case, it's terrifying to only read about what's happening to people who have the moderate to severe. So we thought we would get some content out there to say that there will be a portion of this population that gets this virus and will be fine, but this is what's going to happen and it's going to be scary. And it's not the common cold. It's not the common flu. Like whoever keeps saying that it's not what it feels like. But ultimately, you're not going to you may not end up in the emergency room hooked up to a respirator. And I think it's important for someone to tell that story. But
Yeah, 80% of cases will be like Megan's case. Obviously, this doesn't mean that, we think you shouldn't be treating this as seriously as it is. Like, as Megan was saying, this is just to give you a glimpse of what it's like for the mild cases because there isn't enough time or resources for people to be studying it right now because they're too busy saving lives. So this is just an experience. Yeah, no, this isn't a sexy podcast episode. I'm so sorry.
I'm sorry.
But oddly enough, it just seems semi-relevant.
Yep, and
I also think it will be interesting to have a record of this, to have a journal of this thing, this major event that so many people are experiencing, and unfortunately, so many people will experience in the future. So Yeah.
We're like this is totally going to be Utah history for everybody from Utah, but it's like all of the journals that we were forced to read and then recreate
Right, yeah.
for Utah history of the Mormon pioneers crossing the lands and arriving
My dearest
at
Clara.
Utah. So yeah. That's what I want. Is I want 100 years from now, some student to listen to Megan's podcast.
Yeah, they're going to be forced to write a paper about us.
and write it. Good.
In the 21st century, podcasts.
Ew.
Webster's dictionary defines podcast as...
I already feel so old.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so going into this, there are a couple of disclaimers and things that I think are important to note about me as a person. First off, I am somewhat of a food Nazi. Like, I pay a lot of attention to what I eat. I try to eat incredibly well. I am like 80% vegetable. I have actually been on a vegan diet since December. And I pay a lot of attention to make sure that I'm still getting the same amount of protein and iron that is important to function as a human being. And when I say I'm 80% vegetable, it's like 80% vegetable, no, like 75% vegetable, 15% water, and 10% Prosecco.
Cool. Yeah. Good.
I also work out a lot. Like, I'm a really good Los Angelino. I'm really healthy. I'm really fit. And despite both of those two facts, the third and fourth fact about me is I am constantly working. Like, I work, and then I work some more. And I've said that a couple times on this podcast, but like, I do an average of anywhere from 50 to 70 hours a week, depending on the week. And on top of constantly working, I am constantly traveling. Like, I am always on the go, both for work and personal life. Like, there's been several episodes of this pod where we've recorded from a basement in San Francisco to Mammoth to Salt Lake City. I've been in London during meetings. Like, I'm just constantly on the go. So those are 4 facts that kind of go into the overall arcing health of me going into this. And then the last thing I just want to say, I know we have a tendency to do semi-longer episodes on this pod, which is great for quarantine times, but I don't know if you're coming in and out of this story. But ultimately, my parents did not handle this situation well. And I'm going to be honest, because I think it's important to be honest through this whole thing, but I don't want people to judge them too harshly. People are weird in times of international crisis. And ultimately, my dad redeems himself at the end. So he gets better, but it's going to be a rough start at first for how we feel about those two during this story. Okay, so we're going to go way, way back. We've been living in Corona for a while now. It was kind of announced as a major epidemic crisis in China on January 27th, 2020. On that day, I was flying from Heathrow to LAX, and the last place you want to be during any form of epidemic is an international travel hub, because that's all you can think about. Like, as you're going through the airport while you're on the airplane, and then when you go through the other international hub airport and you're stuck in customs for 2 hours. Like, it's all you can think about. Especially since, if you're smart, you realize that epidemics don't really see race. They just see human bodies. So when you look around the airport, like, everyone's a risk factor. And I think it's important to highlight that fact. Like, everyone can get this. It doesn't matter kind of age or race or economic status. Like, everyone can get this. And what was interesting is I was really panicked about it for the hours that I was traveling. And then I went immediately from Heathrow to LA and then got immediately on a plane to Vegas for another meeting. And by the time I got back to Vegas, like, no one was really, it wasn't being talked about all that much in LA yet. Most of the media coverage was about Kobe Bryant's death, which had just also happened. So I kind of forgot about it for a month. And then about a month later, so in the late February era, we started having major issues getting light sources to job sites. I work in the lighting industry. All LED chips come from China, and their warehouses were closed. And so no fixtures were being shipped. It was becoming a major issue for some of our larger job sites. And again, it just kind of fanned the fear, because you started like realizing how many people had traveled to that area and around, and like just how much it was spreading. The other thing that happened at the end of February for me is so on February 21st, I had just finished a 24-hour shift at my office and then flew to Salt Lake City and spoke with Colin's parents after being awake for 30 hours. I don't know why this always happens, but every single time I seemingly pull an all-nighter at the office, the next people I see are Colin's parents. So I think that they just they think this is like my normal and that I'm doing hellish hours. I am doing hellish hours, but they're not always overnighters. And this is also to say who I am as a person. After being awake for 30 hours, I slept for 8, woke up the next morning, and then went skiing because I just don't have any respect for my body.
Yeah, sounds right.
You'll sleep when you're dead, I guess.
Yeah. Once the weekend was over, I went straight from Salt Lake City to Orlando on February 24th for a week-long series of meetings. During this week, this is officially when I started getting pretty scared. I have 2 major clients that I am so not legally allowed to talk about. We're just going to refer to them as Client A and Client B. Client A, we are working with them on a project in Eastern Asia, and they had been trying to get us at a meeting there to review light fixtures for a couple months, and finally everything was coming into place. But what it was turning into at that time is if either my boss or I went, it was going to be a guaranteed 2-week quarantine coming back from it. And we were both just like, which one of us goes? If either of us are taken out of the office for 2 weeks, that's a problem. So which one of us is going to do it? And then ultimately by the end of this week, it was canceled, which was insane because, again, we were trying to set this up for like months. It finally happened. And not only did they cancel the meeting, but they shut down all of their Asian properties in that same week. With Client B, which is who I was in Orlando to have the meetings with, from Monday to Friday, I saw the entire cycle that they went through, which is on Monday, they had called back every single one of their employees who relocated to China back to Orlando and shut down temporarily their office there. And the economic ramifications of that are enormous, especially since those employees were quarantined for, it was either 3 or 4 weeks. So like to make that decision, especially at a corporate level, is huge. And then by the end of the week, they had released a company-wide memo that I had read saying that all international and domestic travel was officially banned for their employees. Domestic travel could only happen if there were things that needed to be done in person and right now. So like a lot of the design team weren't allowed to travel anymore because technically if you're going to review something, you don't have to review that right now. That can be reviewed in a couple months or so. And they also shut down all of their Asian properties. And that's what made me officially panic because both clients A and B make so much money off of the properties that they shut down. And I've been in so many budget negotiations with these people that I know the value of $1 to them. And for them to make this decision was officially when it hit me that like no one's really talking about this in terms of as serious as it is at the end of February. Now, I agree with the decisions that both clients A and B made. Closing down was 100% the right move. And ultimately, they were doing it for the benefit of the public and their employees. So, that's the panic that I was at. I was in Orlando until March 1st. After doing my meetings in the greater Orlando area, I went to Disney World. I met with my parents and my dad and my stepmom, and then we both went our separate ways and went back to Salt Lake. I went to LA, and for about a week, Corona was on the back of my mind, but it was just kind of life as normal. And that brings us to Monday, March 2nd. So, this day mostly proceeded as normal with two exceptions. There are three major players that are going to be constant highlights in this story. I have three bosses. There is the president of the company. Her name, I will call her Anne. I'm using three fake names through this. So Anne is my direct boss. She's the president of the company, and the two of us are super tight. I have a hella good relationship with Anne. We work really well together. Then there is the CEO of the company. His name is Dick, and his wife, Jane. So Dick and Jane. Jane is the office manager. She also handles all the accounts. So between those three people, they kind of control everything for my company. The big changes that happened on Monday, March 2nd is Anne and Dick are constantly traveling. Like, everyone at my company travels a lot, but they are never in LA. Or if they are in LA, they're going constantly from architect office to interior design office. They're just moving. And as of Monday, March 2nd, they were grounded. Like, they were at the office every single day. And they had ordered that my company cancel as many trips as possible, like to really review what we considered essential travel. The other thing that was given to us was we were given a mandatory survey to fill out. It asked, do we have a home computer? Do we have home internet? What equipment do we have? And have we set up call forwarding from our desk to our mobile? And, I mean, it's obvious what they were trying to achieve with this survey. They were trying to see, ultimately, if the office could go remote, and I was absolutely shocked. Because, historically, Dick has had a long-maintained harsh view on working remotely. He never, ever lets anyone do it. Anne has been a lot more flexible with this in the past. The only company employee who's been allowed to do it is our CAD manager, because he's amazing. But they've just been hardline non-starter. And so that was, again, this was kind of indicating exactly how much things were turning at what a quick pace. So, as of Monday, March 2nd, there were 2 confirmed cases of COVID-19 at CSU Long Beach. And people began to panic buy, but really only at Costco and Walmart, which was, I think, a fascinating social study. Monday, March 9th, we gather in the conference room for a team meeting regarding coronavirus. There is no hand sanitizer left anywhere in Southern California. There's no hand sanitizer left in the entire state of California. Costco, Walmart, and Amazon are sold out of toilet paper. The back order on Amazon Prime for toilet paper is like 2 weeks. However, it was really easy to find at Trader Joe's. Like, I just stocked up normally that weekend, and everything was still pretty regularly stocked as of March 9th. Dick and Jane have been taking this disease seriously since January, and we have set up large hand sanitizing stations around the office. They also sourced a personal bottle for each of us to have at our desks. And the presentation is all that they set up for us was all directly quoted from the American CDC, which has been fairly consistent with the recommendations from the World Health Organization. So, Dick, Jane, and Anne all state that we need to take politics out of our beliefs regarding corona and listen to recommendations of doctors. and they handed us the following rules that hopefully are common practice in everyone's life by now. Everyone is to follow a strict 6-foot social distance around others. We are to consistently wash our hands for 20 seconds. We are to cover our mouth when coughing or sneezing with a tissue or elbow. We are to take sick leave immediately and stay at home if we begin to show symptoms. The receptionist at our office wiped down all office surfaces with disinfectant daily, and employees were instructed to do the same at their personal desks. Anyone who does not clean up their own dishes daily will face a yelling from Dick, an exercise that is really not fun. And takes a moment in this presentation to remind us that all of these are common courtesy and common sense. It's ridiculous that they have to remind people to wash their own dishes, but this has actually been a consistent problem at our office. Jane also takes a moment to remind everyone to flush. Dick has a moment of confusion and states, "Disgusting. Social etiquette aside, all of our toilets should be equipped with auto flush." Every female identifying employee knows that that is not true, and knows exactly the problem that Jane is talking about.
Eek.
Yeah.
Gross. Why? Okay, sidebar. Why has toilet paper and bathroom issues been such a persistent theme running through this respiratory pandemic? It boggles my mind.
Out of all the things, I think toilet paper was one of the stranger things to go first. People were reporting early that like a symptom could be diarrhea of this.
Oh, that's right.
Of this disease, but still, it was bizarre, man. Like I understand hand sanitizer going, I understand cough medicine going, but the toilet paper was a weird turn.
The toilet paper, it's very Freudian, I think.
Marcella's very confused.
No, please, Colin, please explain that one to me.
I just think, this time of extreme stress has made everyone revert to an earlier stage of development, formed a sort of anal fixation, if you will.
All right, I'll allow it. All right.
We can't control world events, but god damn it, we can control our assholes.
Okay. All right. Yeah. I mean, it's as good a guess on any as to why toilet paper was being purchased in bulk. But yeah, okay, cool.
This is not making it into the episode.
Once the health aspect of the presentation had concluded, Dick switched to the economic impact. 20% of my company's business are projects located in China. Not a single one of them canceled. Or went on hold. My company is a lighting design firm, and 80% of our portfolio is hospitality based. So everything that's closed right now, restaurants, resorts, hotels, nightclubs, theme parks, and so on and so forth. So Dick really pushes that while the office building may close, nothing is confirmed yet. We continue as normal. What is kind of interesting is that the hospitality businesses that we work with are actually taking advantage right now of the forced closure to remodel and improve. So they're putting in skeleton construction crews that can remain a 6-foot distance apart. And they're really focusing in on their design teams right now. Like things that can actually be done remotely to improve their businesses. Like that's how they've swapped it up right now. Because the ongoing theory being that once Corona is over, everyone is going to want to be out of the house and entertained. So they're trying to get the infrastructure basically there to do that.
Is that theory or just basic human need? I need to leave this house
Exactly.
as I am safely able to.
I mean, and it's also fascinating because like one of the things that closed first were casinos in Las Vegas. They never close. Like it's just such a big loss of money for hotel rooms to be out of commission. It's also why it's kind of impossible to find a decent hotel room in Orlando because they're constantly booked and they don't want to close them to remodel. So both of those are taking advantage right now to be like, we can finally paint. So this meeting ultimately lasted 2 hours, and we returned to our desks. I start working away on a deadline that I had that day, and I'm already late on. And I just kind of overhear what the rest of my studio is gossiping about, and it's all gossip about what just happened. They all laugh at how seriously Dick and Jane are taking this. One of my coworkers said, the mortality rate is 2%. These are odds I'm willing to take. Another coworker says, we're all freaking out too much. It's just the common cold. One of my coworkers was completely silent through all of this. She became a grandma this year. She's like my nanny, who is what I call my grandma. Both my nanny and my mom had children very young. And I don't know how old my coworker is, but she's panicking. I think about Dick. I sat next to him during this entire presentation. Dick and Jane are both over 50, and Dick had lung surgery earlier this year. He's panicking because he has the exact wrong combination of factors right now. My company perfectly depicts what is wrong with society during this time. My company has 25 employees. 8 have kids. 14 are under the age of 35. And of those 8 who have kids, only 4 of them have children. Right? So, of the 14 who are under 35, and myself was included at this point, we were being real assholes about the whole situation. Fast forward to Wednesday, March 11th. My WhatsApp is blowing up. All of my London friends work in the entertainment business, and all of them basically lost their jobs in the same day. I don't know what to say to any of them. I'm forever away, and I don't know how to help. Broadway begins closing shows one right after the other. I text Marcella to see if she's okay. I text Joanna, one of my friends from London who was going to be on tour in New York. I was going to see her the following weekend. Stella was fine, and Joanna was still determined and on schedule to go. On Wednesday, after a full 48 hours, I begin to believe that it is not a question of if we begin to working from home, but when. But I'm still afraid of sounding like a crazy person, so I'm not saying that out loud. And I don't want to be thought of as the person who panic shopped. So I texted Colin and made him do it.
I think I had already done it. Or no, Wednesday. I went Thursday. That's right. So yes, I did my panic shopping on Thursday.
And like my text, I think said, Corona aside, we should have more shut-in food, in case of earthquakes. Like trying to still be logical about this.
Yeah, and, we should have a little earthquake kit. We never have had. We never have had one.
Yeah. Now, one of the things about the days that Colin went panic shopping was it was the same day that LA County closed all public schools. So when Colin went, everyone else went. Because
or March 12th? Is that right?
March 12th. So did you go on Wednesday or Thursday?
I went on Thursday.
Yeah, that would have been March 12th.
Okay, yeah. I didn't know everybody closed the... I didn't know the schools had closed then, because when I went to the Trader Joe's in our neighborhood, I was the only one panic shopping. I was the only one with a big full cart, and it was the middle of the day, so maybe there were lots of people there. It didn't seem like the end of the world just yet, not like it does now. There was still they were pretty cleared out of dry food and cans and frozen food, but luckily we had just started a vegan diet, and nobody wants vegan food, so I was able to stock up on plenty of that.
Yeah, LA County announced the closure of public schools that day, but it didn't go in effect until like noon on Friday.
Yeah.
So it was like the beginning of everyone panicking.
Yeah, I think I got in with the first wave of panic shoppers because the second time I went to Trader Joe's, it was cleared out, like really cleared out, and no more TP.
In the late afternoon, President Trump announces a travel ban against all of Europe, except the UK. And all I can think of is why. The cat's out of the bag. Corona is in the US. It's already spread. I come home that night after a heated yoga class to find Colin in a bit of a frenzy. Shopping was not kind to him. He doesn't like that I'm still doing workout classes. He is begging me to cancel my New York trip. And he's texting his parents. Colin's brother and his wife had gone on a huge trip through Asia, and they just made it into Portugal, and the travel ban was just announced. So they did exactly the wrong combination of countries in exactly the wrong order.
It was serendipitous how bad it was, how bad their travel plans were.
And Colin's parents couldn't get a hold of them, but they rebooked their flights to come home
asleep.
Anyway. Which ultimately, I know it's a little weird because, like, as an adult, if my parents just like summoned me home, I think the knee-jerk reaction is to be like, no, I'm an adult. But, like, they did it because all the flights were going to be booked out by the time that they woke up. Yeah. And so ultimately it was the right decision. Mm-hmm. And they made it home.
No, it was. It was good they came home when they did.
I received a phone call from my nanny asking if she should still come out this weekend. And that's when the reality of my feelings hit me in the pit of my stomach. I have a young grandma, but she's still 70. Last time she was on an airplane, it was back from Croatia. She got bronchitis and had it for 2 months. And if seeing me was the reason she got COVID-19, I would never, ever forgive myself. So I say, don't come. Do not come. And on Wednesday, March 11th, I had a bit of a cough, but didn't think much of it. I always get sick coming back from Orlando. It's a swamp. Friday, March 14th, Long Beach has its first official case of communal spread. I sit down at my desk and I'm a little offended that I was offered no extra equipment. Our tech manager has pulled together care packages of like spare monitors, keyboards, mice, and for anyone who didn't have a laptop at home got a desktop. And I was given nothing to help my little MacBook Pro, and I was a little offended. The first email is from Dick. Someone didn't flush the unisex bathroom. And if this person didn't confess by the end of the day, Dick was going to check the security footage and fire that individual. I chuckle like an 8-year-old because my office has an actual mad pooper. Anne walks towards Dick's private office with a face that reads, "No one is getting fired for pooping. Go back to work."
I'm not wrong about this Freudian. There's something there. I don't have a thesis yet, but it's there. There's something there.
All parents leave the office by noon to pick up their children. They now need to be home to watch them. 2 of my coworkers are doing this alone. One is a single parent. The other spouse is in India right now. One of the under 30s is getting ready to leave with a suitcase. Dick intercepts, asking where exactly does he think he's going. He's getting on a plane to the Midwest. Dick immediately starts chewing him out. I listen to every word of the exchange, and all I can think of is here are the examples of both sides that are wrong right now. Not taking it nearly seriously enough. This individual was the same one who said that they would risk the 2% mortality rate. And freaking the F out. Like, Dick was freaking the F out. He bought all the hand sanitizer, stocking not up only for himself, but for his adult children and distant family members, and threatening to fire everyone because they're not wearing face masks or stockpiling toilet paper. Like, that is freaking the F out.
Yeah.
I was still going to my favorite coffee shop every day, mostly because I was afraid of what would happen to them if they had to close. But I was washing my hands like a maniac. I was still going to spin class, but I did cancel my trip to New York that day. I wasn't buying every bottle of water at the store, but I was very worried for, to put it frankly, my idiot parents. My dad is in that category of baby boomer who, when advised not to do something by the government, is like, I'm an American, and America means freedom, which means I can do whatever the hell I want, including the thing you said not to do. So my dad and my stepmom purposely went to Disney World the final weekend of it was operating for the foreseeable future. My family is very opinionated, and we're not particularly talented at holding things in. So, like, my father sent me and my siblings, that photo of a huge crowd in front of Cinderella's castle before the fireworks, along with a caption that read, "Look at all these brave people facing coronavirus." And my sister replied with something like, "What you refer to as brave, I may refer to as moronic." My mother was in Mexico. COVID-19 had several confirmed cases in Washington, D.C., where she lives. My nanny, my aunt, my sister, all pleaded with her not to go. My mom's school had just shut down, and she got on a plane and went to Mexico for some form of law school competition. I was on the phone with her while at the liquor store, which was not as bad as the grocery store, but still panicked. She kept saying how Mexico didn't have many cases and how she didn't think she was exposed, and if she was going to die, it might as well be on the beach. And I tried to explain to her what the situation was on the West Coast, and she wasn't getting it. My mom has a tendency to get a tunnel vision into New York, Boston, D.C., and nothing else. Like, I tried to explain that Washington State had been a hotbed for a while and still was not contained, that San Francisco had already been on lockdown for 2 weeks and was not going to give that up anytime soon, that LA was going to lock down. It was not a case of if but when, that there was no way that this is going to be contained in 2 weeks, that there are no other places in the world that has been able to contain it in 2 weeks, and there was no reason to think that the U.S. could do it, especially in our highly populated cities. And that she could not wait this out in Mexico. Like, first off, the status of the border was constantly changing, and my theory was major cities are going to start closing their airports. And secondly, it is highly irresponsible to go from a location with growing COVID-19 cases to a location with none. Like, that is exactly how pandemics spread. As tempting as it is to go from to a small community right now, you really shouldn't, because you put those places at serious risk. And I'm not saying that where she was in Mexico was in the same category, but there are mountain towns where throughout the U.S. that are seen as like safe havens away from the city, where the nearest hospital is like 2 hours away. And if you go from somewhere where you've been exposed to somewhere like that, like you're putting people who don't have immediate access to resources at serious risk. Like, it's scary being in New York and it's scary being in LA, but like, stay. Anyway, that's my soapbox.
Yeah, gotta stay put. I mean, the brave thing, the thing is, it feels like cowardice to stay home, right? Like, we all feel like we should be doing something, but the brave thing is to sit at home and to deal with it, to deal with your feelings of being a coward, to sit alone with your own thoughts for a while, and it's scary. So I see why people want to go out, but like, it is more courageous to stay home and to deal with it than it is to go out and ignore it.
And it's got to be really weird as an adult to have your kids worry about you in ways that you've worried about them in the past. It's got to be really weird to have your kids tell you what you can and can't do. But on this Friday, one of Colin's friends texted him a really dark joke, which was, "Hey, we might be homeowners by the end of all this."
So dark.
Rough.
All right, Saturday, March 15th, I get an email from Dick saying anyone who hasn't responded to him in the next 2 hours about our home office setup will be terminated.
He threatens that a lot, doesn't he? That's like his go-to, like, get this done or you're fired.
Yeah, this week especially. Sunday, March 16th, email at 9 a.m. from Anne reads that remote working as of tomorrow is optional but highly recommended. The state of California has left it to counties to dictate COVID-19 rules. LA and Orange County are synonymous. They have officially ordered the closure of all bars and restaurants. Gatherings over 50 people are banned. My clients A and B have officially closed their offices and employees are working from home. Gensler, the largest architect firm in America, and I think the world, maybe, have officially ordered all employees to work from home. Not just in California, not just in New York, all employees.
Do you work with Gensler? Sorry.
Gensler?
Like, quick side note.
Yeah, I do work with Gensler.
Oh, I have 2 friends who work at Gensler.
Oh, shut up.
Yeah, so I knew all of this and I was like, wait a second, that's so funny. I wonder if you've ever interacted. We can go back to the podcast now, but later.
All of our California clients are setting up home offices to remote work in if they haven't already been set up previously. Like, this was taking off in the case of 3 days. Monday, March 17th. I am in the office for 15 minutes. 8 other people come in. Jane gathers us into the same conference room we were in just the week before. My office building is officially closed. Remote working is mandatory. Jane is really scared. For as long as I've known them, Dick and Jane have been staunch Republicans. They donated to Trump's campaign in 2016. Jane stood in front of all of us and openly said she no longer believes a word the president says. I personally have never believed a word that deranged Oompa Loompa has ever said, and a vast majority of the people sitting next to me in the conference room are on the same wavelength, but we're all still shocked to hear Jane say it. Jane at this point only believes doctors, the CDC, and Dr. Fauci is basically her new messiah.
Isn't he everyone?
Yeah. She
Praise
asked
be,
if we
Dr.
had
Fauci.
any...
Praise be to him.
She asked if we had any questions. I only had one. Reimbursement checks? Our instruction was to leave as soon as we could. I disconnected my monitor from my desk, and I had a check for $1,600 in one hand and a 4K 24-inch monitor in the other, and I pieced. It's the coolest I've ever been.
Very cool.
Like, you know that scene in Mad Men where Peggy's, like, packed up and she's got, like, a box full of her shit, sunglasses, and, like, a cigarette hanging out? Like, I felt like that. Like, it was amazing. Anyway. I packed up my car. I was out. It was like 10 a.m. still. On my way home, I stopped at Trader Joe's to pick up a few more supplies. They were limiting the amount of people they let inside. You had to wait in line before you went in. They immediately spritzed you with hand sanitizer. And they were completely picked clean of all dry foods, all frozen foods, all canned goods, eggs, and most meat. You could still get most fruits and vegetables, which I think is confusing because, yes, longevity is important, but so is not getting scurvy. The only thing in the produce section that had been picked clean was onions and potatoes. You could have all the sweets and wine you could possibly imagine. Their liquor section was still fully stocked, which I'm also really surprised by, because that was like number one on my list. Was like, how much wine?
Still plenty of cookies and liquor.
Yeah. I went home, hooked up my second monitor, and got ready for work. That night before bed, I had noticed I was a little short of breath. But I thought it was just anxiety. After all, between Friday and Monday, I had received 2 emails threatening termination of someone at my company. I had gone from maybe we'll shut to go the fuck home. And the grocery store seemed like it was the end of the world. Earlier that day, I had thought I had heard an emergency siren. You know, like those ones you hear in movies from the 60s that, like, the nuclear bomb is coming. That
The air raid siren.
Yeah. I thought I heard that, but it was just our neighbor's vacuum.
Okay. That
Duck
sounds
and
like a
cover.
panic response.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I wasn't thinking much of the fact that I couldn't breathe. I thought it was just panic. And that's where we're going to leave part 1 of this, is at the end of Monday.
Megan's Corona saga will continue.
Yeah, and I know a lot of that wasn't Corona symptoms. That was like intro. Like that was the situation that most of us are kind of living through right now. We all lived through that to some degree.
Definitely.
No, I think it's good to have all that background and sort of show step by step how things progressed. And yeah, for future reference, it'll be really interesting to have this.
It's also like a really clear documentation on how our like brains were reacting, which I think is really crucial as we talk about becoming symptomatic as well, because so much of what you're saying is like, I dismissed these things. I was short of breath, but I figured it was just this other thing because so much of the world is changing. And that seems hugely relatable. Every time I cough now, I'm like, is this it? No, it's probably not. That's dumb. Why would I think that?
Yeah.
It's I think as we enter part 2 with Megan, you'll see that it's important to listen to your symptoms and to be smart about how you may or may not communicate them with other people or accidentally pass them on. I really applaud the thinking that you had, Megan, about, it's so wrong to bring a potentially asymptomatic person to a place that feels safe for you, but you're now injecting a potential threat into the community there. I think background is crucial here because it's so much of our thinking as we make decisions as we face this virus.
Yep.
Huh. But that being said, we are going to wrap for this week, and we will be back very soon with part 2.
Yep. All right. So thank you. Thank you, everyone. Love you.
Bye.
Bye.
Now.
Don't we do a sign off?
Yeah. We forgot. We
suck at sign-ons and offs today, guys.
I guess, I think one of the symptoms of Corona is I've officially forgotten my name, but I believe I am still Megan.
I'm potentially Marcella.
I'm the husk of what was once called.
Thanks, friends.
Bye.
You will agree that the concepts will contribute to the rearing of a mature person.
An absence of
Oh, yeah, you don't have to be thinking about sex.
that it continues in